Batar. Good to see you, sir.
Good to see you too, Trevor.
I've been explaining a little bit to people about 5G and about my own journey and understanding all this, but I have never gone into the depths that I know you have recently, especially with this whole COVID-19 craziness that the world's engulfed in at the moment. And we could talk about that for hours, but tell me a little bit about the 5G component and your fears and what you have found recently about this.
Well, one of the things is 5G affects the immune system, and I've known about this for quite some time, but it was just like everybody else's knowledge. You know it's bad, and you know that's about it. And in my philosophy, the 7 toxicities just falls under the 4th toxicity category, which is the energetics. But recently what I've discovered and found out is the amount of research that's been done and published. There's over 2,000 peer-reviewed papers that have been published to talk about the destructive components of 5G. But the problem is that for the lay audience, sometimes they don't understand the significance of this. Now, I'll just try to condense it down. There's a video on YouTube that's got over 250,000 views in the last few days, and on Facebook over 300,000, and it kind of goes into detail. It's called 5G and immunity. So it's under the COVID conspiracy ? And it's 5G and immunity. So people can go and look at the research, because I show the research actually on the video. But the bottom line is this. We have in our electrical system, in the houses and in the offices that we spend 23 out of the 24 hours of our lives in, the electrical circuitry is based on either 50 hertz or 60 hertz. So in Europe, it's 50 hertz, in the US, it's 60 hertz, okay. People know that sometimes people have a health issue from just that. That's when the grounding becomes more important and they get better. When we're talking about our cell phone devices, our mobile devices, our iPads and such, you're looking at anywhere from 350 up to 900 hertz. That's the 4G component, all right? Now, when you start talking about 5G, you're talking about 30 to 300 gigahertz. And recently somebody said, Dr. Batar, when you talk about the gigahertz and hertz, maybe for the average person, they don't understand this. So I'm going to break it down for the numbers so you understand how this works. So 900 hertz is a top end for a 4G network. So when we're talking about like a cell phone or something like that, it's about 900 hertz. The studies have showed that at 1.8 gigahertz, I want you to understand that a gigahertz is 1 million hertz. So a kilohertz is 1,000 hertz, and a gigahertz is 1,000 kilohertz, which is 1,000 times 1,000 a million. So 1 gigahertz is a million hertz. So we're going from 900 hertz to a million hertz, and the 1.8 gigahertz or 1.8 million hertz is where the studies have shown implications, and the list goes on and on. Now, when they're talking about 5G, that's between 30 to 300 gigahertz. That's between 30 million hertz and 300 million hertz, whereas the studies are showing at 1.8 million hertz, we're getting the problem. Now, let's go on beyond that. What does it actually do? What is the actual physiological mechanism? So, Trevor, if you know anything about me, then you know that the two things I'm a mathematician and I'm a physiologist, okay, before anything else. So the physiology means how the body works. Everybody's talking about pharmacology in medicine, but it's actually how the body works, not what we do to the body to readjust it. So our bodies are going through, each cell in our body is going through over 100,000 reactions per second. And now we have trillions and trillions and quadrillions of cells. It's like 2.6 with, I think, 27 zeros at the end. That's how many cells we have, times 100,000 per second. So that's how many metabolic reactions are going on. Well, each cell has a cell membrane, and the cell membranes have thousands or maybe it's millions, I don't know how many calcium channels that allow the efflux and influx of calcium in and out of the cell. Calcium is an extracellular ion, predominantly lives outside of the cells. The calcium channels regulate the calcium going back and forth. And these channels are called voltage gated. So voltage gated means based upon the voltage is how they open up and close up. 5G disrupts the voltage gated calcium channels and allows calcium efflux into the cell, which cell kills itself in order to sacrifice itself for the protection of the whole. In the case of 5G and in the case of calcium going inside the cell, there's a suppression of that program. So there's a suppression of apoptosis, which is part and parcel of the definition of cancer. Suppression of apoptosis and uncontrolled cellular proliferation is the definition of cancer. So you have a suppression of apoptosis due to the voltage-gated calcium channels being disrupted from the 5G. And I think that if every doctor knew that, they would sign the petition that's already, I think it's over 1,000 doctors and scientists have signed this petition, and over 208,000 people have signed it to try to stop the propagation of 5G. In fact, Belgium has passed laws now to stop the advent of 5G. I'm not sure. There's two other countries I understand, but you probably know more about that being in Europe.
Yeah, there are for sure. So before this whole COVID thing even appeared, you were seeing massive correlation with 5G and illness.
Yes, actually, I had people that would come to me with electromagnetic sensitivity, and I never attributed to 5G per se, because 5G hasn't rolled out everywhere. 5G was rolled out in Wuhan. 12 out of the 12,000 towers, there were 2,000 towers turned on in December. So in the 5G component, in that video that I'm talking about, I show that the hardest hit places, Italy, Iran, and China, all three had rolled out 5G within that month or the previous month. So Iran and Italy were really, really, really pushing hard to be the leaders on the planet for 5G rollout as far back as September and October of 2019. I show the websites, multiple sites that talking about how these countries were vying for #1 position. In Wuhan, it was announced in 2018 that they would be the what do they call it, the premier launch site for 5G for all of China. And they launched 2,000 of the 12,000 towers, or 1,800 of the 12,000 towers in December the same month. I mean, it's not coincidental. By the way, on a side note, the patent on the coronavirus, not on the vaccine, but the patent on the coronavirus itself, was perfected and granted, get this, November of 2019 in Europe. If you want to know more about that and you want to see the patent, who owns the patent, we can't even put this on social media. So people need to go to advancedmedicine.com where they got the registration link for this webinar and watch 5G, watch that part 5. It doesn't talk so much about 5G, but it talks about that component. And everybody, the future of mankind really depends on this, so that people really understand the deception that's going on right now. It's massive. It's on the this is like Disney World. This is like the reanimation of the Lion King, and we're watching the impala and the zebra that Simba eats bowing to him. That's more real than what's going on to me. And this is completely a facade.
Wow. So just so we're clear, and just the average person is clear, you're not saying 5G caused the coronavirus, but you're saying
no.
It is so bad for our immune system that it can let whatever wreak havoc inside us.
Absolutely. So what I'm saying is that there's 3 components to it. So the first video talked about the overall picture, the facts and fiction. That's what the first video was. The second one was toxicology. So there's the chemtrails people talk about, the outgassing in Wuhan. They had covered, by CNN and BBC had covered, the tremendous amount of air pollution from the incinerators that were burning, to the point that the public outcry had deemed military intervention, police intervention, and BBC and CNN covered the human rights violation component in Wuhan in 2016, 2017. So the toxicology is the first thing. You first make the people, poison, basically make it toxic. Second, you introduce something that's like COVID. Now, COVID it's like a one-song wonder, okay? It's like they tried to make something that was so virulent. It's man-made, and I show that in the third video, Corrupted Science. So you see the manipulation, the chimeric component, when it was done, who proved it. But then you introduce something like this that if it hits somebody, it can't do much, okay? It's like making a car that's so fast, but it only has a 0.1 second burst, and after that it has nothing left in it. So if it hits you and you're susceptible, then it can do some damage. Otherwise, it's not going to do anything. Then the third thing is the introduction of the 5G, which is the fourth toxicity that impacts the physiology and changes it. So you've got the first toxicity, heavy metals and persistent organic pollutants, that the pollution takes care of. You got the third toxicity, which is the opportunistics. Then you got the fourth toxicity, which is the energetics. It's amazing that everything that they're rolling out is based on my 7 toxicity philosophy. So I know, Trevor, we're not talking about this, but I got to say this. First toxicity, heavy metals and persistent organic pollutants are covered in the outgassing, the incinerator burns, and the chemtrails, etc. The third toxicity, opportunistics, is bacteria, viruses, spirochetes, mycoplasma, yeast, parasites. That's what they did with the COVID. Fourth toxicity, energetics. This is ambient cell phone radiation, microwave energy, etc., etc. 5G is microwave energy. That's what it is. It is creating a global microwave. Fifth toxicity, emotional, psychological. What are they doing? They're scaring everybody. They're hitting them on the fear aspect. The sixth toxicity is foods, not what we eat, but really what we do to the foods. And they've been doing that for years. The glyphosates, the homogenization, pasteurization, irradiation of food, genetic modification of food. And the seventh one is spiritual toxicity. And that's what they're trying to get to people But the thing is, the human spirit is connected with the divine. And so I think that's where they're going to fail, and I think that's where we're uniting. So I appreciate you indulging me to get into that part.
Oh, not at all.
Diatribe.
And I certainly hope you're right about that spiritual thing, because that is something I think right now everybody's got to call upon. I really do believe that. Our general humanity, if we can't call upon that now, we're screwed. So tell me, I'm going to explain to people the devices that have been developed in Germany and that are so effective at shielding us from 5G. And I'm going to talk about that at length. But apart from that, Dr. Buttar, what do we do right now? What does the average person do to try to? Is 5G inevitable? Is it inevitable that this is going to roll out worldwide and we can't roll it back?
You know, it's an interesting question, because now you're talking from a political standpoint, and you know that every important, significant change that has affected mankind has never come from a government, an organization, a society, a governmental body, or a political entity. It's always come from one place. It always starts when the public demands it, when there is a massive outcry, when there's protests and people are refusing en masse, okay? So I hope that happens, so people understand that, look, for our convenience to have technology that's going to basically kill off humanity over a period of a generation is not worth it. I mean, at least it's not worth it for me, and I'm sure it's not worth it for you. And that's why people of awareness obviously want to protect themselves, and that's where the technology comes in that Synergy Science has. But what I'm talking about and what you're talking about is an evolutionary leap in understanding what life is about. And if we're here to grow and understand and learn, then we have to learn that there is a consequence for every action that we put out. And this particular consequence that we're talking about with the action of rolling out 5G has very, very, very dire consequences. And we need to understand that if we want our children and our grandchildren to have a better life, 5G cannot be part of that.
Yeah. Listen, Dr. Buttar, thanks for spending the time with us, and thanks for everything you're doing out there on behalf of us all.
Thank you so much, Trevor. I appreciate it. And thank you for getting the message out to people.
No problem. Appreciate your time. Good to see you.